Let's look at another example of changing the local base level of a river. And in this case, we're going to look at adding something instead of slowly eroding it away. We're going to look at a dam being added to the river in order to create a reservoir behind it. In this case here, before the dam was built, we can see we have a fairly smooth topographic stream gradient going from down to ultimate base level at the sea. But after we put in this dam, we would actually be recreating that base level. We'd be adding a new base level here, and that would actually be changing the gradient so it's flat here, it quickly drops off here, and then it follows this line again down to the sea. So probably the most famous example in the United States of such a change in base level, of local base level, is the Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam is on the Arizona-Nevada border outside of Las Vegas. And at the time it was built, it was just a marvel of engineering. The Colorado River was stopped behind the dam to create Lake Mead, and the Hoover Dam is just a very large and voluminous dam. We can see it has a height of 726 feet. It's created this entire Lake Mead behind it with a reservoir of 247 square miles. It was just an engineering feat when it was built all those years ago. And dams can actually be a very good thing. They can help supply us with hydroelectric power. They can actually, because the water is being held behind it in a reservoir, they can be relied on for a reliable water supply. That water can be released as we would like it to be, either for irrigation of farms or even for supporting urban areas. If we have a big rainfall, the water can be held behind the dam, and we can control floods, and the lake itself can actually be used for recreations. But there are a lot of issues with dams too. We really change the ecosystem of an area when we build a dam. It's difficult for fish like salmon that migrate upstream to migrate if there are dams in the area. Sometimes it causes more tourism and urbanization and congestion in an area, so it just builds up that area. We can have a lot of sediment being deposited in the reservoir behind the dam, and it can also make areas that are drowned by the reservoir behind the dam inaccessible. And so before anything like this is built, typically there are archaeological surveys in order to make sure there's nothing that needs to be documented before these sorts of dams are built. And this example here shows the Columbia River flowing into Lake Mead, which is behind the Hoover Dam, which is not shown further to the south here. And we can just see all of the sediment that's being input here. And this is because it's a new local base level. We're going from water that used to be that is fairly rapidly moving in this area here to an area in here where it's not moving. It's moving very, very slowly as it slowly comes out the front of the dam. And because of that change in velocity, the water is no longer flowing fast enough to hold all that material in the water column, and so it just drops out and is deposited behind the dam. And a lot of reservoirs behind dams have these issues with sedimentation, and they can actually eventually even choke off the dam over time.